All right. Well, welcome everybody. Good to see you, Josefina. Let's start with because we're starting a completely new topic. Let's go ahead and set our motivation because it's really, really important in anything we do to set an intention and a motivation. So may we all as a group, through the guidance of Geshe Nima and studying this classic work of Nagarjuna's, continue to grow and develop our wisdom, our compassion, and our loving kindness so that we can lead all sentient beings out of suffering to be liberated from the suffering of cyclic existence and to attain complete enlightenment so that they achieve complete happiness, the removal of all the obstacles to enlightenment, and the completion of all the realizations to enlightenment. And may that be our motivation and intention with all the studies and practices that we do. Okay, now let's go ahead and do some of our opening prayers. We'll do the taking refuge, generating bodhicitta. We'll do the usual ones. Four measurables, mandala, the seven limb prayer, and the mandala offering. Sangye chedang soki chognam la, jangchu bardu dagni sapkyuchi, daggi jinso gipe sonamki, drola penchir sangye druparsho. Sangye chedang soki chognam la, Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi, dagi jinso gipe sonamki, drola penchir sangye druparsho. Sangye chedang soki choknam la, Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsuchi, Dagi jinso gipe sonamki, drola penchir sangye druparsho. The four immeasurable thoughts. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Then in the space in front of yourself, imagine the Buddhas and all the Bodhisattvas and your spiritual teachers. And we say this, the seven limb prayer. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and others to the great enlightenment. And then here with the mandala offering that we make to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and our spiritual teachers in front of us, we imagine what the universe would be like if everybody achieved enlightenment. And so what we are making this offering is that through the Buddhas, through the spiritual path of the Dharma, that all beings can achieve enlightenment. So here we say this mandala offering. Zajiperki jokshim etok Tramri rablingji Nidegyen padi Sangye jingdu migde ulwagi Drokun nam dakshingla chepasyo idam guru ratamandalakam niryatayam. So as I was saying, I'm really excited about this, and I'm so again grateful to Geshe Nima for, I asked him, what should we do next, and this is what he suggested based on the fact that we had been studying Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara for almost a year, and he said this really prepared us to study this particular text. When he first said Nagarjuna, I went, oh no, because Nagarjuna is the most penetrating and profound proponent of emptiness in the that we have now, and even scientists study, neuroscientists and scientists study Nagarjuna because his insight is so on the point and on the mark, and it can be quite well, and as any of us know who've read some of the wisdom teachings, it's hard to penetrate them. But after I looked at this book, I saw, oh, this is great, because what he's doing in this book is he's giving. I guess I'll start out with a sort of a overview of the book, and then Nagarjuna, and then we'll go into the mantras that Geshe Nima gave us, because I know. There probably was a lot of confusion and didn't even, that's the way transmissions are. So it's fine. Don't worry about it. As long as it went into your ears, you're good. So we'll talk about that.
And in a way, for those who.
And if you didn't have the transmission, that's okay too.
In a way, getting it now.
You'll be getting it now. So let's talk about the book first. There are not many commentaries out there on this. There's basically two, and then there are some online, but not a whole lot. So this is the book that I'm using for it's by Kensor Jampa Tegchog, and it's called Practical Ethics and Profound Emptiness. And this is a commentary on this particular text, and Tupta Chundrit is the editor. So this will be very good, very handy. The other one is by Jeffrey Hopkins, and he's the translation that we're using. Jeffrey Hopkins is, all Lama Pasang, Geshe Dragpa, they always talked about Jeffrey Hopkins and what a great translator he was. And so Jeffrey Hopkins has a translation, but this translation also has annotations and some analysis. So this is also beneficial to read. This is just Nagarjuna's Precious Garland. And then Jeffrey Hopkins, there's the title that he's got of it. And then it's Jeffrey Hopkins, Jeffrey Hopkins. And I'll send these links too. But I think I sent enough links this week. Except for the login, the Zoom. Okay. Thank you, Kavita. It's really good to have a Dharma partner who, looks after you. And thank you, Merit. So
just went back to a December meeting and found it, so that was.
Oh, well, that's smart. That's good. Yeah. Oh, if you want to turn that back to, so that everybody can see, if you want to do that, that's fine. No, this, is that good for everybody to see it? Okay, that's good. So this is an overview of the text that Thupten Chodron puts here in her preface. I'm not going to read all of it, but just parts that will explain what we're going to be going through. So, of course, Nagarjuna starts out by making an offering to and an homage to all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, just as we always do, so that it's he's starting out with an intention and a motivation, and the importance of intention and motivation is it can't really be overstated, because our intention and our motivation is sort of like the reins we have on a horse, and how we pull or steer the reins, it will make the horse go where we want it to go. If we have no intentions at all, then you're sort of riding a wild horse, and all kinds of distractions could come in, or if you have the wrong intentions. So it's really important to have this kind of altruistic intention for any Dharma study or practice or writing such as this that Nagarjuna composed. And then in the first couple of chapters, he goes into some really practical information about the causes and effects of what he calls a higher rebirth and highest good. So higher rebirth is referring to liberation from cyclic existence, liberation from samsara. Well, no, I'm sorry, I take it back. Higher rebirth is referring to a rebirth as a human or a god or something like that, some higher being, a human being, not any of the lower rebirths which could be considered animal realm and lower, because of the kind of mind and brain that we have as humans. We're able to actually understand the Dharma and understand the concepts, and we can do something with this life. So particularly a precious human life is one in which we have the opportunity to meet the Dharma, which all of us have, and we're of sound mind, which I believe all of us are still. So we're right there. We've got it. We've got the highest rebirth he's talking about. What the causes and conditions, we had it. We've got it. That's wonderful. You can also have a higher rebirth as a god or something, but their life is too pleasurable, and so they actually say the human life is the best. So he goes into the causes and conditions for those. Then highest good. There are two kinds of highest good. So that was higher rebirth, and now he's talking about highest good, the causes and conditions for highest good. Highest good has to do with liberation from cyclic existence, just freeing yourself from cyclic existence. And then the ultimate highest good is enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So he goes through the causes and conditions for that as well. And this is very much the Bodhisattva path, that we've been talking about. Then the causes for higher rebirth are, like what we have as a human, are things like ethical conduct, generosity, dedication of merit, things like that. The causes for highest good, which is liberation from samsara, is wisdom realizing emptiness. And then the causes for enlightenment are wisdom realizing emptiness combined with bodhicitta, the aspiration to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the Bodhisattva path is the path that is taking us to the highest good, which is enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And that's the dedication, the motivation that we had at the opening of this. He then goes in the second chapter, he just goes right into emptiness and some really, really amazing insights into conventional truth and ultimate truth, and how to keep ourselves from, how does he put it? It's the two extremes. It's freedom from, so he talks about selflessness, emptiness of inherent existence, which we talked a lot about, and then freedom from the two extremes. And these two extremes have to do with conceptual, not conceptual, conventional existence, the existence that we are all aware of, in our life. So conventional existence, we tend to, as we look out at everything, think of it as if it's inherently existent from its own side, the way it appears to us. That view that things truly, the way they say, truly exist, that leads to an extreme of that you could say permanence or absolutism, where you say things are the way they exist. Things exist truly. The way we see things, this is the way this really is. This is the way people really are. This is the way the world is, the way it appears to it.
Kind of almost like fundamentalism. You know,
It's
fundamentalism in the sense of conventional.
conventional reality fundamentalism. Things are the way they appear to be, and that is an extreme view. When the other extreme view that occurs, because what we find out is, as we go through this, we find out that suffering is part of this whole thing. There's this suffering. And so we try everything we can. We're looking to get things out there from somebody, someone, something, some job, some anything that's going to make us happy, that's going to fulfill us, that's going to, some external thing. And that never actually does the job. That's not what works. So that then will lead to suffering, disappointment, a sense that nothing matters, and that ultimately leads to nihilism, this extreme kind of nihilistic, almost super depressed view, where nothing matters, nothing means anything. And so these are these two extremes, where everything out there is the way it appears, and I want it, or I don't want it. And then this extreme that comes when nothing seems to be working, you don't care, you don't even think karma matters. And you just go into this view of nihilism. So he goes into that, and that's a really important part of understanding the path. Because I remember Geshe Drapa telling me that there was something I said to him one time at the dinner table, and he said, "You be careful of that, because you could go to the extreme of nihilism there, and that's very, very dangerous." The extreme of nihilism. It's almost like you sink down into a frozen.
Why do this anyway?
Nothing matters. Nothing matters at all. Right. It's sort of like a total giving up. And this is what we must never do. So the only way that we can get out of those two extremes is to actually understand the way reality exists. And we talked a lot about this in the Bodhisattva path, that things exist. They say empty of inherent nature, but the flip side of that is everything is interconnected, interdependent, dependently arising on every level imaginable. It's more than just, this book is made up of all very different parts and came from different places, in the wood and the pulp and all that. It's much, much more than that. So that's, he gets into that, and it's really, he gets into this profound stuff right away.
So one extreme is everything matters, and the other extreme is nothing matters.
Yeah, you could say that. Everything is real. Everything is the way it appears to be, and and I'm the way that I am. I'm an I have a self that's independent, self-existing. This is independently self-existing. Everything out there is independently self-existing. It's the way it appears to us, and that's an extreme. And the other extreme is nothing matters. I give up. It's nihilism. Yeah.
I wonder if,
They say absolutism and nihilism are the two extremes.
I wonder if there's something about any of the hero or solitary, the Theravada view of just trying to extinguish yourself through Buddhism is some variation on.
It is, I
guess
guess,
we'll wait to see what.
you will see what Nagarjuna says. Yeah. But that's why they say you have to have this middle way between these two extremes. The Mahayana path, or the Madhyamika view, is this middle way between the two, that actually finds where is the reality here? What's actually going on, and how is this working? I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful that we're going to be able to get at least a conceptual grasp of this.
Just remind, why don't you share that thing you said about the daily practice aspect of studying this text?
What did I say to you? What did I say to you?
That the implied in this text.
Oh yeah, I mean, I started out saying that the implied in this text are all sorts of things that are practices. For instance, in this first chapter, he talks about karma and cause and effect and how that works, and he talks about why it's important for us. Our actions of body, speech, and mind are going to create the karma that we have. If they're very positive actions of body, speech, and mind, we're going to generate very positive karma. If they are negative actions of body, speech, and mind, we're going to generate negative karma. And to understand what this means and what kind of karma it's going to generate, then there are practices. If we've already generated negative karma, there are purification practices that we can do that can sort of remove from our mental continuum those seeds, those imprints of the negative actions that we've generated. And there are practices that we can do to increase our wisdom, increase our compassion. So this is why, you know, the mantras that I put the mantras here, and there are the pictures of the various Buddhas and deities that go with these mantras, and I'll explain those after we get through the run through of this overview, and talking about Nagarjuna himself. Chapter 4 then is very interesting because it continues, and Nagarjuna is giving advice to a king here. This whole precious garland is called Precious Garland of Advice to a King, and it was a king who was a benefactor of Nagarjuna. And it's not clear exactly who this king was, but they've sort of narrowed it down to a couple of people and who they think that this king was. But that's not the important part. The important part is that what Nagarjuna is giving advice to this king, how to create institutions and social programs and things that are going to be, as a ruler, that are going to actually be beneficial to society. So that can be directly translated to today. What he's saying is no different for a king in the 2nd century as it is for what's going on now in the 24th century. So it's just a matter of how do we transfer that information. So this becomes a very, very interesting book, because it's working on some really practical levels and some very profound levels. Then in chapter 5, he goes and gives more advice on the practices of bodhisattvas. And this is what we have been doing with Shantideva, learning about the bodhisattva path. And he tells us the faults to avoid and the excellent qualities to observe, you know, and to develop. So that he's very clear about that. And the reason for that is to make our life meaningful by both benefiting the world and deepening our own wisdom into the nature of ultimate reality. So that's the 5th chapter. And then he concludes with talking about the importance of properly relying on a qualified spiritual master. And we've talked about this before in the past, but he will go into more detail on this. So we're in this case, we're talking about people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Geshe Nima, Venerable Robina Korten. These are qualified spiritual masters. Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And you can still, even if your guru has passed away, you can still have a relationship with that guru. And you know, you can depend on them. This is my own personal experience, so I know this is the case.
I think you've even shared that on a couple of occasions, like you had a dream and Geshe Drakpa came to you in that dream. So there's obviously, and you and Kobe just mentioned, there's still that close connection with Geshe Drakpa.
Right, yeah. He came last week in a dream. So it was, yeah, so it's important to understand how to rely upon a spiritual master. And then he gives some practical advice on how we relate to others in our daily life. so that our actions bring peace and harmony rather than conflict and division. And boy, do we know this in families, among friends, with groups. What is the right way? How should we behave? How should we be thinking? How should we be thinking? How should we be acting? What's going to be the way that was most beneficial and doesn't create discord, but, really helps, especially with those who we're close to, I mean, I'm sure all of you have experienced something like this. It's kind of heartbreaking to see someone who that could be very close to you, who is really, really, really suffering.
Mhm.
And no matter what you say, what you do, what you try to do, it doesn't seem to help. And it can be very frustrating, and you don't know what to do. So this is going to be really, really interesting to hear what Nagarjuna has to say about this, because this is a very, very practical for us in our lives, in society, and how we deal with one another. So that's just a very brief overview of it. Now I want to talk about some about Nagarjuna, so you get a sense of who the author is. And then in this book by Jeffrey Hopkins, he gives some introduction about these prophecies that Shakyamuni Buddha gave about Nagarjuna coming. And there are several sutras in which this is mentioned, sutras of the Buddha in which this is mentioned. There's one called the Great Drum Sutra. There's a Great Cloud Sutra. There's a few of them, 4 or 5 of them. Sutra on the descent into Lanka, the Great Cloud Sutra, the Manjushri Root Tantra Sutra, the Great Drum Sutra. The story is something like this. And what it does is it outlines Nagarjuna's a broad expanse of his lifetimes. And so Shakyamuni Buddha is giving a discourse to a group of monks. And among those monks, there is a youth who has a Sanskrit name, which means liked when seen by all the world. So Shakyamuni Buddha sees this liked by seen by all the world, and he says that you were, in a past life, you were a monk who made the appeal to wanted to become enlightened for the benefit of all beings. And so then in the next life, you became a king, King Akshobhya, or Akshobha, or Akosha, sorry, a King Akosha, who was who supported the Dharma in India. Then in this life now, he was as this youth, this young monk who was in the audience of Shakyamuni Buddha. And he says, you are going to become a great teacher. And he talks about him. So he says, after I've gone away, after I've passed away, 400 years from now, which would put it about in the 1st, 2nd century, which is when they think Nagarjuna was born in India. A monk called Naga will arise, faithful in and helpful to the teaching. He will attain the very joyful ground. Very joyful ground is one of the 10 bhumis, the stages of the path to enlightenment that a bodhisattva goes through. And this is what Shakyamuni is predicting to this youth who he's seeing, who used to be a Kosha the king, and before that was a monk who made this, motivation or intention to become enlightened. So the point of this is to see the power of motivation and intention, and how it will carry anyone from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, depending on what our intentions and our motivations are. Those are the kind of lifetimes we're going to have. So he's saying, you're going to appear then as this, you'll be born in India, you'll be called Naga, and after that, and you'll live for 100 years. Then you'll have some more lifetimes. So these lifetimes will be 600 years or so. Then you're going to go to some Pure Land. And from Pure Land, you'll be there for, I don't know, eons or something, and you will eventually become one of the Buddhas who comes to this realm, as the way Shakyamuni Buddha did. And when we were Geshe Nima was giving the transmissions on Friday, he mentioned that, they're already now they're saying Nagarjuna is a Buddha. So has attained that, must be in a pure land, somewhere. So that this shows you the sort of the broad expanse of a lifetime, and what the intentions, the motivations, and the practices, where you can go with that. And this is open to all of us. We can do this, and this is why we're studying this path. And it's that part of Nagarjuna's life is important just for that. Whether you believe all of the things that go along with this story, which I'm going to tell you, the idea that these intentions were made and there was a broad sweep of lifetimes that got Nagarjuna to where he is.
What is your sense of how the passage of time over eons as consciousness evolves lifetime after lifetime? Do you have any sense of what that feels like? Because it feels like so far away and so distant that it's never really going to happen. It's just a metaphor to say it's never going to happen.
I mean,
I know that's not the point.
I can't say that I can have a sense of what that may be. All I can say is I know that there actually is no other time than the present moment.
Right.
There is no other time. So whenever we will always be in the present moment. So the idea of a length or we've all had the experience how time can go like that, or how long something can drag on. And that doesn't have to do with the time itself, because we're always in the present moment. It has to do with how we are feeling about it, how we are experiencing it. So I think if we have this motivation, if we have this intention, if we can become very excited about the path that we're on, I don't think the time's going to matter at all. In some ways it could fly by, from lifetime to lifetime, because we would be so, we'd have such a clear sense of what we were doing and why we were doing it and the importance of it. It would make our lives have such purpose and meaning that I don't think it would matter to us the length or the eons or whatever it took.
Christy,
Another way of, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, you were talking about how there's only now. And when we speak of lifetimes, it's how our brain has to compartmentalize a much broader picture. But, supposedly lifetime, all these, past few, they're all happening at once. So as you go through these stages of enlightenment, we talk about lifetimes, but it's really happening now. I mean, is that kind of what you're saying? I had the briefest experience of something similar in a meditation where there were other lifetimes, it was happening right. And I can't articulate it and I couldn't grasp it. It kind of happened for moments and then it went away. But it was a sense of what I'm saying. And I think maybe what you're saying, I don't know if we're on the same page here, but I just wanted to comment.
I don't know that it's all happening now, but all I know is the only thing we experience is now. Our experience is just now. The rest of it is conceptual. It's like a memory. We're thinking about it, what happened or what's going to happen. But even when we're thinking about what did happen or what's going to happen, we're in the present moment thinking about those things. Mm-hmm. If, for instance, say we could time travel, right? And we go back to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and we're there, right? Well, when we were there, it would be now for us. It wouldn't be the past. It would be now. We would be experiencing it now. So in that sense, Merit, if you could time travel to all these different things, it would be happening now. It wouldn't be happening. You wouldn't be there experiencing Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and going, "This is happening then."
Right.
You'd be going, "This is happening now." For me, it's happening now.
Right.
That's only if we agree that the physical laws that dictate time and space are actually correct.
Right. And I mean, All I know is when we're experiencing something, it's always now.
Things in linear fashion as happening to us, you know, it starts, we get up in the morning, we go through the day.
Right.
In the evening, it's a linear fashion.
Right.
We're born, we die, we're reincarnated, it's a linear fashion.
Mhm.
But there's multiple lines of life experiences that can be happening to us all at the same time, at least according to the movies.
Right.
And so you could have one, the other, or both. And so, but I think what you're saying is right. When you experience it, you're experiencing the present. But it seems to me if it takes many lifetimes to accumulate this knowledge, it has to be because you can only accumulate so much understanding in any given.
Mhm. Right. And what they say when you have this direct realization of emptiness and you have realized it, you know, that's happening right at the moment. And I mean, who knows what that is like, you know, because I haven't had that, but I mean, I'm assuming it's a consciousness expanding moment and changes everything. It really changes everything.
But, so basically what you're talking about is quantum physics, because quantum physics says that time and space don't exist. But I think that in our human experience, in another practice, they call the holy instant, which is
Oh, sure.
sometimes happens during meditation.
Mhm.
That there's this wholeness about this moment and it's expansive and
Mhm.
so, I mean, I don't know what it feels like, but I think that all of us have experienced it from when we are meditating really well. So,
Yeah. I know. I've heard of that holy instant. Yeah. Course in Miracles, right?
yes.
Yeah. Course in Miracles, Kavita and I were studying that back in the 70s.
Mhm.
Yeah, the two of us.
I mean, for 20 years.
Yeah.
I did it for the last 4 years and I'm back here, so.
We felt like it was a perfect conveyance to.
Yeah, the Course in Miracles to me was the perfect bridge from a Christian point of view, which is how I was raised, into the Buddhist point of view. It was like this bridge. It was just this wonderful thing that happened, and it brought us to Buddhism.
It's
So-
like a translation. Right.
Yeah. So where was I now?
You were about.
Nagarjuna, you were asking about time, right? Nagarjuna. So I want to tell a little bit about his life story. And I'm going to look at Alexander Berzin because he's got a good synopsis of it. Not too long and not too detailed, but just right. Yeah. Got to find it though.
Or I could send it in the link and people could.
No, I'll find it.
But so even when you look at how Buddhist texts describe, say, Nagarjuna lived from here to here. He was here and here.
As
He did as
Nagarjuna.
Nagarjuna.
Yeah, as Nagarjuna, right.
Right.
But every moment of his life was a present moment.
Exactly, but the point is that there's still a defined time
Yes.
sequence
For
in which
Nagarjuna.
he's recognized.
That's true.
Nagarjuna, he does his teaching, he does his writings, he does his interpretations.
Correct.
So-
Absolutely, that's true. Yeah.
Out of courtesy to the way our consciousness.
Yeah.
operates.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, all right, I couldn't find it, but I'll just tell a story from what I remembered. So Nagarjuna was born in South India, in somewhere like between 150 BC to 200 BC, somewhere in there. I mean, CE. And there was a soothsayer who came to his parents and said, your child is going to die soon unless you can make offerings and he can become a monk. So his parents were very, concerned. So they then sent him to become a monk when he was 7 years old. They kept him alive, and for 7 years old, he went to study and become a monk. When he was a little bit older, he went to Nalanda University, which is the same university that Shantideva was at. in the 8th century. So in the 1st or 2nd century, Nagarjuna was at Nalanda. And he eventually became, he was so good at what he was doing. He was so sharp in his intellect and his understanding of the Dharma and his view, his profound view. He eventually became the abbot of Nalanda. And he sort of cleaned up Nalanda. He got rid of like, I want to say it was 1,000 or so monks who were not observing their monastic vows. And so he just got rid of them, and he cleaned up Nalanda. And he became known for his understanding of the profound view, the view of emptiness. One of it is said that he had visions of Manjushri. He was taught by Manjushri the same way Tsongkhapa had visions of Manjushri, this Buddha of wisdom, and was taught by the Buddha of wisdom. There was a strong connection. So he was teaching at Nalanda. One of the periods he was teaching at Nalanda, this may have been before he was the abbot, I don't know, they don't say. But there were, there were all kinds of many ages of monks that at these universities. So there was a group they were younger monks. And there were 2 young monks in particular who had this wonderful aroma of sandalwood about them. Everywhere they went, he could smell this beautiful sandalwood. And he said to them, where are you getting this sandalwood? And they said, well, we got it from our father. And, where is your father? Because he wanted to use the sandalwood at the monastery, and he wanted to help, he wanted to build some structures and things like that where he would, they would have the sandalwood. And the monks then revealed that they weren't actually humans, and that these 2 youths were what are called Nagas. They are if you look up Nagas in Hindu history, they are these very powerful, I guess you call them reptilian or snake-like or serpent-like or even dragon-like creatures. They can take different forms. They either live in the water or under the ocean, beneath the ocean, or they live in caves or under the ground in caves. And they're very, very smart, very wily, and very powerful. They can be very benevolent if they're pleased with what's going on. So in India, there are several places in India where there are these lakes and waterways, and the people still now believe that this is a Naga kind of land, and they think of the Nagas as divine or superhuman or super something, like divine creatures. And they make offerings to the Nagas so that the place will stay, calm and beautiful. And they keep it very clean too, because the Nagas like everything very clean. And, take this as you will, but this is definitely part of the lore, you might say, of Hinduism in India, and as well as not only in ancient times, but now, today. I could also talk about, because I've studied this when I was studying Mesoamerican cultures, they have the similar things. They have these very powerful snake-like creatures. They're called Quetzalcoatl, Quetzalcoatl. And then also you have in China, you have the dragons, and it's so all over the place. Even in the Bible, there's a serpent, wise serpent, right? But they can be, I remember Lama Pasang said, yeah, they can be dangerous and they can be tricky. So these 2 youths, sort of revealed to Nagarjuna that they were actually Nagas. And he said, well, there was at one point where Shakyamuni Buddha, several centuries earlier, had been teaching the Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, and the perfection of wisdom, like the Heart Sutra and things like that. And there were Nagas in the audience. And Shakyamuni Buddha gave a copy of the Prajnaparamita to these Nagas, who then took it to their wherever they have lived under the ocean. And Nagarjuna knew this. So Nagarjuna said that he would, they said, you can come, we talk to our father, and he will give you the sandalwood. If you will come with us to the Naga kingdom beneath the sea, and teach us the meaning of the Prajnaparamita Sutras, because they couldn't figure out what it meant, because if it's so profound, you can read the words, as we've said many times, you can read the words, but you don't know what they're saying.
Right.
So Nagarjuna did. He went with them. He went under the water and he spent a bit of time there. And he taught the Nagas the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. He taught the meaning of it to them. And so they gave him a particular kind of black clay that he wanted, that he could build structures with, and they gave him the sandalwood. And they kept the 2 last chapters of the Prajnaparamita with them because they wanted him to come back and teach. So they didn't want to just let go of him. So he took what he had, Nagarjuna took the Prajnaparamita Sutras that he had, and then he went back. And then if you look at the image that's on the email I sent out, and it shows that's Nagarjuna, and he's sitting near this water, and there are these snakes that are coming over his head and sort of forming a that's not Nagarjuna, that's Vajrasattva. No, Nagarjuna is not. He was in the actual email. The pretty blue. No, that's Manjushri. No, Nagarjuna is the one who's in the email, the picture in the email, and he's got snakes over his head. So there's where that image came from is there was a time where the snakes they were sheltering Nagarjuna from the sun. And because they respected him so much, they sort of formed this umbrella. And sometimes you'll see like a big cobra too.
That's when the Buddha got enlightened, when he was trying to enlighten the cobra.
The cobra, again, that was a Naga. Right, the cobra. Right. Yeah, that's Nagarjuna. That's this picture of Nagarjuna from the email. And you can see the snakes over his head.
Yeah,
Which is why he was called Naga. Then because he was so, his logic was so sharp and to the point and always hit the mark, they gave him the name, other people gave him the name Arjuna, and Arjuna is the hero of the Bhagavad Gita. And the Arjuna was a archer and always hit the mark. So they took the 2 names, Naga and Arjuna, put them together, and he became Nagarjuna. So that's kind of the story of Nagarjuna. And then you heard the prophecies, then he went on, he's on to other lives, and according to Geshe Nima, now he is a Buddha. So that just gives you an idea of who this is that we're going to be reading.
right.
Which is sort of changes the view. It's not, it's like, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
What still puzzles me, I guess, is if we have all these Buddhas walking around, all these Bodhisattvas walking around through many lifetimes,
I like the way you put that.
why the hell we find ourselves in the situation we do?
Well,
Especially when, the first stanza of the 10 Bodhisattva sayings that Geshe Nima has asked us to read now speaks to how the Buddhas can even calm their worst enemies as proof that they are the Buddhas.
right. But it takes 2.
Right.
It takes 2. It really does. So
No,
the Buddha actually cannot. The Buddha is not omnipotent. See, there are.
Can they calm their worst enemies?
They can calm their worst enemies because they are omniscient and they would know the kinds of things that they could say to help them or soothe their mind. But it really, if the sentient being is very, very stubborn, is not open to it, is going to do it my way or the highway, what can the Buddha do? Except, and the only way it actually works for us, the only way it actually works for sentient beings is we have to suffer enough. And maybe it's a different level of suffering for each one of us, I don't know. But we have to suffer enough that we get to the point where we say there must be a better way than what I'm doing right now.
I just remembered we were listening to a talk about this, and I forget the name of the man, Geshe Lobsang.
Oh yeah, locked door.
And I just remembered what he said about when you read this phrase, the worst enemies. He said it always means your internal grasping and craving. So
Right.
That is our worst enemy.
Your worst enemies. That's Tibetan insider talk for grasping and clinging
Yeah.
and craving. I guess that's one possible
Yeah.
way to look at it. Because ultimately, especially as you get into the view of emptiness, we're not talking about external,
Out there,
yeah.
subject object.
And,
Yeah.
They literally say that when you purify your consciousness, you know, everything appears differently. So our apprehension of the turmoil of the world transforms into something else I couldn't say, but.
I think the good news about that is that it's clear that all of us are interested in this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this. So in some way, the Buddha has, calmed our worst enemy. We are turning it around now. We're on the path. I mean, the thing to understand is that the worst enemy we have is our own ego self-grasping at an inherently existing me and mine. And that's the worst enemy that any of us have. This is what is causing this is what is the foundation of cyclic existence, is the ego. And Course in Miracles has such a wonderful way of expressing the ego and the ego dynamics. It is just like Buddhism. It's just like Buddhism. And so we were getting this early on. I think even in our late teens, we were studying it. And so this has been, this process is what led us to Buddhism. And it was just went seamlessly almost into it,
But also I think, for me, one thing that I've been practicing is when someone is completely committed to their ego, first thing they do is they drive me to my own ego, so I try to not do that. But then what I think, I don't say it, is you will suffer for as long as you want. And once you're tired of suffering, you will stop suffering. And I will suffer for as long as I want. And when I'm tired of suffering, I will stop suffering. But there's always this option of, it's all here. All my suffering is right here inside of me. And people suffer not because of the circumstances, because the Buddhas or Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps through Judaism, or in all religions, there are those who figure it out and stop suffering. So it's consciousness of awakening. We call it certain ways in Buddhism, and then other traditions call it other ways, but it's the same thing. It's the same concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's like once we've had enough suffering and figured out there's got to be a better way.
Yes.
This is not working. And that's when I think that's when we start turning the Queen Mary around. Yeah. So that's Nagarjuna. We have the sort of a overview of what the book is going to be telling us. Now, I want to get into, because I know just from my own past experience in receiving transmissions and trying to understand what these mantras mean, it's not easy. And what Geshe Dragpa told us when he was giving us these transmissions a long time ago, he said, just don't fall asleep and make sure you're listening and it goes in your ears. And he would do, just like if any of you who were there on Friday, and Geshe Nima was doing the Vajrasattva mantra, and he's going, oh, Benzasasama. And people are going, oh, what did he say? If you don't even know it, it's very difficult to repeat the words.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Especially quickly, like,
Yeah.
what's your advice to folks who weren't able to break free to be there on?
Just listen now, and we're going to go over these in much more detail so that you understand what the mantras are, what the mantras are saying, what the symbolism is. of the particular figures of the mantra. So why don't you go ahead and put up, if you can share the screen,
I'm gonna,
put up Shakyamuni.
I'm gonna put Shakyamuni in the chat and then I'll also do a screen share, but let me first put the Shakyamuni mantra in the chat of the PDF. And then of course, you can always go to our website. Well, let me
Yep.
do so that it's here and not wackadoodle. So you'll see that, you know, you don't have to scroll down far to see
You just realized.
the mantras that we're talking about. They're just below the line on this page, so, but I'll, okay, so you got the PDF of Shakyamuni and you've got a link to where the downloads are, and now I will. What did you say, Shakyamuni?
Shakyamuni, yeah.
Yeah. I should. Sorry, folks, just. I'm gonna make this optimal-ish. Okay.
Or if any of you have it on your,
Alright.
phone. What I want is the, okay,
The image of.
the image,
It's not on the sheet you sent.
it should be in the
It
email.
should be.
Yeah,
Okay, well, you didn't, I thought you wanted the Shakyamuni mantra.
I do. I want them both, the image and the, but, we can start with the mantra. Let's go ahead, since you have it up. Let's start with it, okay? So the mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha. So what you can do, I'll say the words and then you can just repeat them so that you get. Sometimes the pronunciation, you don't know what it is, and so like that. So here we go. Tayata,
Yeah.
tayata. Now that sometimes they will write that, they'll write it T-A-Y, the transliteration, they'll write T-A-Y-D-T-H-A. So what that is there's a tayat and you stop with your tongue, tayata. So it's not tayata, but it's tayata. Okay, so a little bit like a Spanish, tayata. Okay, then we have Om Muni Muni. Maha Muniye Swaha. And even though it's spelled S-V-A-H-A in the transliteration, all the Tibetans say Swaha, like S-W-O-H-A. So that's basically what I'm going with. All right, so the first word, tayata, it's a Sanskrit word. It means it's like this or thus it is. It's just a way of opening up. This is the way this goes, right? Om is composed of three pure sounds, a, u, and which signify one's body, speech, and mind that are transformed into a Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Muni is a Sanskrit term for a sage or a saint who knows the truth of existence not on the basis of scientific or religious texts, but through their own realization. In Buddhism, the term Muni is used as a title of Gautama Buddha, who being born among the tribe of the Shakyas is called Shakyamuni Buddha, the sage of the Shakyas, the wise one of the Shakyas. So Maha is a Sanskrit word meaning great. Thus, Maha Muniye means great sage. And swaha means may a blessing rest on it. So a blessing, the swaha is your blessing this, the blessing rest on this mantra. So again, tayata,
Theata,
om muni muni,
Om Muni Muni,
maha muniye,
Maha
swaha. So let's say it together, not too fast, but several times, okay? Teata om muni muni maha muniye swaha. Teata om muni muni maha muniye swaha. Teata om muni muni maha muniye swaha. And if you have amala, prayer beads, this is it's a great way to do these mantras. You can decide how many you want to say. And then it's like Teata Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Eswaha, Teata Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Eswaha, Teata Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Eswaha, Teata Om, like that. And at the same time that you're doing that, you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha. So I will talk about this visualization. All right, here's a visual. I mean, imagine that you have the picture in front of you, right? Here's a visualization that can be used with this mantra. It's not the only one, but it can be used with this mantra. From your heart, generate the request to the Buddha that you be inspired to follow the path to full enlightenment. Make this request on behalf of all living beings who are trapped in samsara. Rays of light stream from the figure of the Buddha before you. This light enters your body and quickly removes all negativities, obscurations, and hindrances, freeing you to progress quickly on the path. Imagine that this light flows not only to you, but to all living beings situated in space around you. Imagine that they all receive such inspiration and blessings as you recite the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha as many times as possible. So then here's a quote from Lama Yeshe, Lama Tupten Yeshe, who was one of Venerable Rabina's teachers. He says, reciting a mantra does not mean the mere vocal repetition of speech syllables. Many meditators know from experience that the act of reciting mantras transcends external sounds and words. It is more like listening to a subtle inner sound that has always inhabited our nervous system. And what I can say from my own personal experience is when I feel like I've been saying this mantra a long time, many of these mantras, and I then feel a strong connection to the deity or the Buddha with that mantra. And I will visualize them either in front of me or sometimes they just sort of superimpose. And then I will feel throughout my whole system all of this energy that happens. I mean, it will happen right when I start the mantra. I will just zoom, there it is. I feel it, and the deity is kind of there. So what I'm saying is everybody will have their own way of doing this, but just that's my experience. And it's if you, what Lama Yeshe said, it's like this, how do you put it? A subtle inner sound that's always inhabited our nervous system. You feel it you can feel it in your energetic body, I might say, that way.
I've been here for anybody who's thinking, oh, that's fine for Christopher.
I didn't know it didn't always happen.
Having lived with him since he started Buddhism 18 years ago, it's only been, recent, maybe in the last year or so, that he's reporting these things. So give it 17 years before you.
Yeah.
That's if he's a slow one.
Well, we don't really know, right? We don't, but you're right. I don't know.
And he's had a very, I'm just gonna also, this is something that might be, but I think it's helpful to hear. Christopher, imagine this for most of you. Christopher has never, ever, ever worked in an office workplace.
That's
He's
true.
never had coworkers. He's never had a boss. He's never had employees. He's never had the incredibly traumatizing experience that most of us have had of bosses, the grinders, and the shitstorm that happens in the typical workplace. And, you know, again, having lived with him now for almost 50 years, you know, had a very fortunate, it's very much like what you hear about the environment. So don't get down on yourself if you're not Christopher, because he's just had a very fortunate situation. It's like working as an artist in his studio by himself, listening to Dharma talks or whatever. And, you know, never having to deal with all that other stuff.
Amen. Hallelujah. Okay, so let's move on because I don't want to. I want to get.
I've been not,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
All right.
Just so that everybody that, because this is how I feel. I feel like, you know, what's the matter with me? I know. I mean, I've experienced it. He doesn't even know this.
So now we're going to. This is Vajrasattva. Oh, maybe you can, unless you can share the picture, or if you want to share just the mantra.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
You gotta know.
Favorites.
Vajrasattva.
When we were in India, I got a Bodhisattva statue, and I actually had it blessed and had prayers put into it.
Oh, good.
In Dharma Sala,
God
yeah.
solid, you know.
That's good.
There's so much shit to it, you know.
Well put. I know what you're saying. This was, yeah. This is a difficult mantra to memorize. But when you do, you know, oh wow, it'll be with you wherever you need it. My favorite place to say this particular mantra has been when I was traveling in the car back and forth a lot. Just every time I get in the car, I say this mantra, you know, and until I got to my destination. And even though I couldn't do any kind of visualization or anything like that, I was just kept saying it because I want to keep pure. This mantra is about purifying our negative karma. And there's a lot in this mantra.
I'm just gonna remind people, many people attended Venerable Robina's, at least some people in
Yeah.
this chat had, when she did the Vajrasattva weekend here.
Yeah, it was quite good. So the Vajrasattva, just the name Vajra.
Is there a handle that goes into this that I'm just missing?
There's just the yeah, you just have the mantra. You don't. There's not a hand. The only other thing is the picture.
That's fine.
The picture. Yeah. So Vajra means it has to do. It's in Buddhism. It's associated with tantric practices. They call it Vajrayana or Mantrayana or the Tantrayana, the tantric practices. So Vajra means a diamond. It can mean diamond, or it can mean lightning bolt, or it can mean thunderbolt. And so a diamond is like one of the strongest materials, natural materials on earth. You can actually create blades with diamond that will cut through iron and steel. So it's it has the ability to cut through things, as does lightning has the ability in a flash to illuminate everything. So what we're talking about is cutting through delusions and cutting through our afflictive emotions. You know, so our obscurations or delusions and afflictive emotions, is cutting right through that with using this Vajrasattva mantra. I'm sorry, it's about cutting through it, but in purifying it. So Vajrasattva means in Buddhism, sattva means just being, a living being. So you have this diamond, powerful, that can cut through living being, strong living being. In Hindi, sattva means goodness, purity, truth, and balance. So this is a good living being, you know, with all this power. So it says, the first line is Om Benzo Sato Samaya. So repeat that.
Om Benzo Sato Samaya.
Om Benza Sato Samaya.
Om Benza Sato Samaya.
Okay, so Benza Sato is sort of a Tibetan Sanskrit hybridized version of Vajrasattva, and all the Tibetans say Benza Sato. That's Vajrasattva, Benzo Sato. So that's the name of Vajrasattva there.
And we don't know why.
It's just, it happens in cultures. They hybridize things. Rabina likes to say Vajrasattva because that's the Sanskrit, but all of our, and including Geshe Nima on Friday, he said Benzasato throughout. So I just go with that. So these Samaya means a promise or a pledge. So what it's saying is that the Vajrasattva has made these, the Vajrasattva being has made this promise from the beginning of time to help sentient beings purify their negativities and karmic obscurations. So that first line is saying, this is the promise of Vajrasattva. This is the promise of Vajrasattva. Then here's the next line. Manu Palaya Benza Sato. Manu Palaya Benza Sato. That means grant your protection and reside in me, Vajrasattva. Then we have Teno Pertikya. Teno Pertikya. Dridro me bawa. Dridro me bawa. That means remain firm in me and let me recognize my Vajra nature. That nature that I have, that very strong, good nature that I have. Then the next line, Suto kyoyo me bawa. Suto kyoyo me bawa. This means make me totally satisfied by being free from conceptualization. So it's our concepts that are causing all the trouble for us, the way we think about things and the way we perseverate over things. So let me be free from this. So make me totally satisfied by being free from this. Then the next line, Supo kyoyo me bawa. Increase the positive energy within me through non-dual bliss emptiness. Now, this is again, this is referring to tantric practices, and the thing about this is sort of like planting the seeds for tantra. If those of you who have not had empowerments, are not have a tantric practice, at some point in the future, you may want to, and it may be this life or some other lifetime. This particular mantra will plant the seeds for that, because this is referring to a non-dual bliss emptiness. Is basically, we're saying it's subject and object come together. When subject and object come together and you realize the empty nature of how things exist, there is a bliss that just naturally occurs. And they say this bliss is better than any bliss you have ever experienced, bar none. So this is non-dual bliss.
I think the wisdom wing could also, a realization of emptiness could catapult one to a non-dual view of things.
Sure, sure, absolutely, it would, yeah.
Again, it's a word of encouragement that it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be only in.
No, they say that if you want to take kind of like a fast track to enlightenment, you can, and you are of a particular mindset, then the tantric path will do that for you. But it's not for everybody, and not to worry about it. All right, the next line is Anurakto me bawa.
Anurakto nebawa.
Anurakto me bawa. And that's be loving towards me and let me be compassionate by being free from attachment and aversions that give rise to many other disturbing defilements. The next line is Sawa Siti Maitrayatsa. Sawa Siti Maitrayatsa. That means bestow all the spiritual attainments. And that particular word is siti. And the Sanskrit word is siddhi, which is spelled S-I-D-D-H-I. This is spelled S-I-T-I, but it's referring to the same thing. And these siddhis are
This is not helpful.
Oh, the cat. Oh, yeah, the cat and the dog. Get her in the
Together.
the porch, right? Okay, there we go. Siddhis are these high spiritual attainments. So then we have the next line is Sarva
I'm sorry.
beloved.
Can you do the repeat of Sala City?
Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah. All right, the next line is Sarva Kama Sutsame
Sarva Kama Sutsame.
Setam Shri Ram Kuru Hung.
Home.
This means let all the actions and activities of my mind, so all their karmic actions and the karmic activities in your mind, always be virtuous. So let our karma always be virtuous. Hung is referring to what they call the essence seed syllable. Hung is it's a Sanskrit, it's a Sanskrit letter as well as Tibetan, and it stands for in tantric practices. It stands for the essence of our consciousness itself, which is clarity and awareness. And in many visualization practices, you will imagine this hung at your heart, where your consciousness resides, and the consciousness can embody that hung.
I have to ask, I'm sorry, but why is it so important that it has to be in Sanskrit? Because,
It doesn't,
okay.
because this is
I
in
mean,
Tibetan.
It's like Latin in Mass.
Right.
And so, I mean, I could learn it, but when I read it in English, I understand it better and it means something. So I don't.
That would be a way to do it. You could do it that way.
And what is the benefit? There has to be an extra benefit to learn that effort.
To learn it because you're getting the actual transmission that came from the mouth of the teacher to the next teacher to the next teacher. So you're saying the words that came out of their mouth,
Okay.
and they're going into your ears.
From feedback of plumbing issues.
And they are basically, it's sacred letters, sacred syllables and letters, so that they actually are very symbolic of different kind of energetic states. These particular the Sanskrit letters, and then the Tibetan ones were done from the Sanskrit and adapted from the Sanskrit. So they contain the similar there's a similar spiritual energy to the letters themselves, and the meaning and the shape of them and the energy and stuff like that, and the sound. So that would be the reason.
Yeah, and my understanding is that it was oral and then it came from the sounds. So originally it was just sounds, it was an oral tradition, and then the Sanskrit is made to understand that. So
And I think they're describing the
Right.
sounds
Right, oh, maybe so.
and the energy of the sounds, right? Yeah. Okay, so then we have ha 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 ho. Okay, so these four ha's, they symbolize four things. The four immeasurables that we all know what they are. This is immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity. We said the four immeasurables before we started class. So that's one of the ha's, is what it's symbolizing. The second ha has to do with four empowerments that occur if you're having a tantric empowerment, and these empowerments sort of enable one to achieve the four bodies of a Buddha, and we'll talk about that later. We've talked about it before, but that's just what that one means. Then the four joys have to do again with tantric practices. There's a blissful awareness that comes when you practice it's called tumo. There's this heat energy, and what it causes is these energetic drops to fall from your crown chakra to four chakras in your body, and there are four joys, increasingly blissful, that come from that particular practice. And then the four kayas are talking about the actual four bodies of Buddha. There's a form, there's an emanation body, there's a light body, there's a Dharma truth body, and there's a Dharma wisdom body. And we will go into those. I remember, I don't know if you all remember the little pictures that I used to do. Yes, yeah. Okay, so then going on, Bhagawana. Just do that, yeah. Then Sarvatataga. And let's do all of that. Bhagawana Sarvatataga. Tathagata, right? I think I said it wrong. Let's do it again. Bhagawana Sarva Tathagata Benza Mame Munza. Okay, that is Buddha Bhagavan. All the Tathagatas and Vajrasattva do not abandon me. Stay with me. Please stay with me. Okay. Then we have Benza Bhawa Mahasamaya Sato. Make me indivisible from you, great Vajrasattva, the promise keeper. Remember, we started out, Samaya, O Benza Sato Samaya. He's making a promise to us. Okay, then we end with Ahung Pe. Really, so you don't, I never hear them pronounce the last D.
Yeah.
Ahung Pe. You could maybe just stop it, you know. So the is a syllable for the Vajra speech, which shows the empty nature of all phenomena. And that's the main function of a Buddhist speech, is to teach that all phenomena lack inherent independent self-existence. That was the point of the Buddhist speech. So that's what the is standing for. The hum is the blissful state of Vajrasattva's wisdom, and the pe is just destroying all the delusions and all the suffering that comes from those delusions. So this is quite a powerful mantra, actually. And they suggest either you do 7 repetitions, or you do 21 repetitions, or you can do more. So on a mala, maybe you can take that down now, Kavita. Yeah. On a mala, what you would do is you could count out, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 10, get to 20, 21. And then you say just Om Benza Sata Samaya Manapalaya Benza Sata. Then, once you've learned it, you can go pretty quickly. And then you do the 21, or you can do 7, or there are different ways you can do it. Robina taught last week or a couple of weeks ago a really good way to do this in conjunction with the 10 virtuous thoughts and the 10 non-virtuous thoughts to purify and actions. I mean, the 10 virtuous actions, body, speech, and mind, 10 non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind. And it's ways of purifying those. And it's a very good practice. So we will go more into that as we get into those sections. And where are we? We're running out, huh? 12:28. Now, Manjushri, this is important because this Manjushri is, Nagarjuna was receiving the information from Manjushri, who is the Buddha of wisdom. Manjushri looks like this. If you have it on your iPhones, maybe you could do that and see him. So I will describe this. Manjushri is depicted as His Holiness says is a young male bodhisattva. Don't know why, because these can be both. For instance, like Chenrezig is both male and female. I mean, they can embody both. So, but they're specifically said a young male bodhisattva, and he's wielding a flaming sword in his right hand, and it's kind of over his head. So the sword. Well, okay, I'll say he's got the sword over his head, and it's on fire at the end. Then there is he's holding in his left hand, he's holding right at his heart. There's a stem of a lotus, and the stem of the lotus comes up here, and then there's the blossom right by his ear, by his left ear, and then there is a Dharma. There's a book of Dharma wrapped in the lotus, so that it's like the sound of the Dharma is going into the ear, and he's got this sword, okay? And what that scripture is the Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. That's that whole scripture, which is about the nature of reality. It's about emptiness. That's what's in his ear. So you've got what the sword is doing is it's a double-edged sword, and it's cutting. And this is where, it's cutting your ignorance that doesn't understand the nature of reality. It's cutting that. It's just flashing through it. And it's also cutting all of our delusions, our afflictive emotions that arise because we do not have the correct understanding of the nature of reality, and therefore get into all this trouble thinking everything exists inherently, including me. So that's what this is symbolizing. And then this, you have the Heart Sutra, or the Prajnaparamita is right in your ear. So what's happened to me, as I've said this over time, and what I will say is when we were doing the Shantideva, the last couple of chapters, I started to feel a very strong, like, wow, I think I need to start saying Manjushri mantras. I had stopped saying Manjushri mantras for a while. I think I need to start saying some. And immediately when I did that, I felt like, ooh, there's the arm, there's the sword. It was almost like, rather than being in front of me, sort of superimposed. And again, a very strong energy. And so the only reason I'm saying this is to let you know that there is some power in these mantras. And what Kavita said is true. I've had a very fortunate life. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I've been able to spend time in ways that I can see other people can't, and I'm very grateful for that. But that can be a very powerful mantra, especially if you're trying to sharpen your mind, trying to understand this emptiness thing, it will make you better at debate. It will make you better at speaking. So let me now go over this mantra. No, we're on the same mantra. We're on the Manjushri mantra, okay?
Do I need to put it up?
Well, do you have it on your phones? Or should she put it up? Maybe put it up. Go ahead and put it up. Go ahead and put up the Manjushri mantra. So again, this begins with Om, which is our becoming transformed, our body, speech, and mind becoming transformed into the body and speech and mind of a Buddha. Om. So here it is. Om Arapasanadi.
Om Arapasanadi.
Om Arapasanadi.
Om Arapasanadi.
Om Arapasanadi. No. They put 3 Ds there because you repeat those Ds at a certain point. But it's first Om Arapasanadi. Okay, so the A, the Ra, the Pa, the Tsa, and the Na, they stand for 5 doors of insight into the Dharma. We won't go into what those 5 doors are, but it's talking about insight into Dharma. 5 ways of insight into the Dharma. A, Ra, Pa, Tsa, Na, Di. They stand for longer words, okay? Again, the Om is, Om, well, I'm going to transform my body, speech, and mind into the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. This is what the whole path is about. Then the D is what's called the seed syllable of the mantra. And a seed syllable is used for focus of visualization, and it's used in tantric practices. So I don't know if it's up there, but there's an Om.
It's on here.
Oh yeah, the Om, the first letter Om. And that is considered to be a seed syllable that you can focus on, Om. But the D in this case, the D, the final one that's all repeated, that's the seed syllable of this particular mantra. So the way you can do this mantra, and there are 3 ways that I do this. Well, you can do it along. No, one is to and this has to do with His Holiness gave an empowerment maybe 3 weeks ago
What did Geshe Nima say the other day?
What?
What did Geshe Nima say about this when he gave to this?
He didn't talk about how you would say it and how you would do it. I mean, he just gave he went Om Arapatsana Di, and we did that.
Did not say anything about visualizing Manjushri and.
He probably said to, but I mean, there were no.
The different, I forget now though what.
They would just
Different
basically
people
said to
focus
picture
on-
Manjushri in front of.
Yeah, so you picture Manjushri. Either you can picture Manjushri in front of you, or you can do that. What's you picture that he's with you, in you, right? Superimposed. So the first thing you do is that you can say Om Rabatanadi, Om Rabatanadi, Om Rabatanadi. If you could do a whole mala if you wanted to, depends on how fast you could go. But what you're imagining is that the body of Manjushri, that this is sort of coming into and infusing your body, right? So this is coming from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I think that's why after that empowerment, when I went to say this mantra, Manjushri was like they're superimposed over me. So then the next round you do is the mind. You think of the mind, and remember in Buddhism, the mind and consciousness are the same thing. It's not the brain, the mind. And you picture that at your heart. And you picture a lotus at your heart, and it has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals, and in the center of the lotus is the circle. So on the 5 petals, there are Arapatsana-di, and then in Arapatsana, and then di in the center. So so you're basically imagining the energy of this mantra is in your heart, your consciousness, it's your mind. So then you do again, Om Rapatanadi, Om Rapatanadi, Om Rapatanadi. You do a whole mala or however long works for you. And then the third one is this di. The D, the final syllable, the D syllable, the seed syllable. And what His Holiness said is that you picture the Manjushri is speaking, and the words are going right to the very root or the base of your tongue. And this will be down by the throat chakra, the root or the base of your tongue. Now, if you have Manjushri superimposed on you, then you imagine Manjushri is saying, you're saying the di, and it's going right to your tongue. So this last time you start out Om Rapatana di, and you say the D's as fast as you can. And you do a mala of that. And then you're imagining the speech, that this is going to affect your speech. So it's the mind, the body, wisdom body, wisdom mind, wisdom speech. Yeah.
It also somehow supercharges your ability
To debate.
ascertain or to actualize wisdom.
Yes, that's the whole point of this.
I'm gonna say, there's actually just to do with the channels and, your energy channels that come here. This I know for sure from firsthand experience, the D, somehow or another, the actual physical doing of it equalizes the flow of energy so that you're kind of in a more balanced, you're not dominant either attachment or dominant aversion. It's well balanced energy by repeating the D like that. It actually has it's like giving the termination point of those channels a little. It's like when you get a massage and when they talk about blocking their energy clumps.
Yeah, Lama Pasang said when they were kids at the monastery and before they would be having to have an exam or something, all the monks would be going down the hall. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tashi Rapton doing the same thing. And how old is Tashi Rapton? 7, 8, 9? Yeah, he's a little monk that Geshe Nima is sort of taken under his wing, and Tashi Rapton is Omarapasana. So if kids can do it, we can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Can you explain more why you say the mind is in the heart, not here?
Because the center, according to the way the consciousness, actually where consciousness resides, if you were to say in our body or our energetic body, it's at the heart. The consciousness we feel like it's up here where our brain is. The consciousness works through the brain, definitely. We have consciousness throughout our body, but the main place where the consciousness, for instance, when we die, our consciousness, everything subsumes down into this area right at the heart chakra.
The crown of the head.
It can go through different ways. It depends on this level of where your mind is. You want it to go through the crown. definitely. But this is where it, you know, stays and everything subsumes down into, and this is where, yeah, and that's what, and when we're born, when we are enter the fetus or enter the, actually we enter the, when the consciousness enters the sperm and the egg at the time of conception, according to Buddhism, that's when it occurs. That's when the consciousness occurs, not later on, right at the time. If it hits it, I mean, I know of a couple of women, one of my sister-in-law, and she said she knew immediately when the sperm met the egg, there was a consciousness. She knew her son was there. She knew right at that time. So according to Buddhism, that's when the consciousness enters into the womb, right then. So when it, and then as it develops, that's what the consciousness is at the heart center of the energy body. Okay, and then we get to the last one, I guess. Can we get to the last one? Yeah, Om Mani Padme Hum. This is the Buddha of compassion. And they call in Tibetan, he's called Chenrezig. In Sanskrit, it's Avalokiteshvara. Buddha of compassion looks like this, white in color, a very peaceful expression. This Buddha of compassion has, as you can see, 4 arms and 4 hands. Okay.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. So you can visualize all of these as beings of light. They're not like solid. They say it's like rainbow. When you see a rainbow in the sky, and a very vivid rainbow, you can tell that it's transparent. You can tell that it's not solid. So you think of all of these beings in that way, that it's like light, and there's a transparency to it, and there's a kind of a brilliance to that light. So in this case, Chenrezig is white. And that represents the empty and open aspect of the awakened mind.
That's the Om.
I'm just talking about the picture, like Tracy has the picture. Yeah, I'm talking about what it looks like. So Chenrezig is sitting on a lotus on a flat disk of the moon with another disk behind him. So two of Chenrezig's 4 arms are joined in the prayer position, holding a wish-fulfilling gem. So you can see the 2 arms are holding a blue gem in between the 2 hands. In the other left hand, Chenrezig is holding a lotus flower, and in the other right hand, a crystal mala, a rosary. And he's counting the, you know, Om Mani Padme Hums, Om Mani Padme Hums, Om Mani Padme Hums, all the Om Mani Padme Hums that anybody ever says. Chenrezig is counting these and making note. It's sort of like Santa Claus, you know. I'm making note, you know. But it's all for your benefit. So it's, in other words, he's constantly saying this mantra and constantly receiving and hearing what all the mantras of everybody who says mantra to him. And by the way, Chenrezig is neither male nor female. Even if I'm saying him, it's also her. It's Chenrezig is a mix. So what the mantra means is it means the jewel in the lotus, and in the way that a lotus grows out of the mud, grows out of the dirt, and it's this beautiful thing. Our Buddha nature is there. It's sort of right now it's covered, but if we develop it, it can grow out of all of these delusions, all of this ignorance, into this magnificent blossoming as enlightenment, an enlightened being who's enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that's the meaning of jewel in the lotus, and that, you know, he's holding that wish-granting gem.
Ane is jewel and Padme is lotus.
Yeah, right. Padme means lotus. Let's see, is there anything else about what he's holding? Okay, he's also holding in the outer left hand, he's holding a flower, a lotus flower. And this symbolizes that in benefiting sentient beings, Chenrezig will manifest in whatever forms are necessary in accordance with the mental capacities, the circumstances, and the aptitudes of each specific sentient being. And Chenrezig may appear in any of the different realms, such as the hell realm or the hungry ghost realm. And however Chenrezig may appear, Chenrezig remains free from any of the samsaric stains of the various realms, the way a lotus flower growing in a swamp appears free of the stain of the mud. And that holding the flower represents that stainlessness. Okay, so Chenrezig is the Buddha of compassion. So we're talking about developing compassion here for all sentient beings. And so here are the 6 syllables, and this is very familiar to many people. So it's just O Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Okay.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
So here's an interesting. This is coming from again Rinpoche and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and so we have Om Mani Padme Hum. We have 6 syllables, and they're saying this represents the Bodhisattva path: generosity, ethical discipline, patience, enthusiastic effort, meditative concentration, wisdom realizing emptiness. So it is the Bodhisattva path. It is that compassionate desire to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings that is the motivation and the drive of the Bodhisattva to become enlightened. And so when we're saying this, we have that idea of the Bodhisattva path, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme, and this tremendous compassion and desire to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so you're feeling that, and letting that compassion really develop and grow in you as you say this mantra.
There's another interpretation that Geshe Sopa gave of the 6 syllables. Quite a few years ago at our house, he did 2 days of teaching about this mantra. He was really into it.
Mhm.
He said, you can also say the mantra thinking about the various realms of samsara, namely the hell realm, hungry ghosts, animal realm, human, God, demigod,
Mhm.
gods, and that you're, as you're saying the mantra, you're sending liberative
to all of the
energies
realms,
to those realms.
all sentient beings. Yeah,
the message they need.
exactly, in the manner that's most suitable for them. Yeah. And so His Holiness says that. His Holiness says the 6 syllables Om Mani Padme Hum mean that in dependence on the practice, which is in indivisible union of method and wisdom, so in other words, compassion and wisdom, those practices, you can transform your impure body, speech, and mind into the pure body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. So I think we will end it there. I think we covered all of the mantras. We will be using these mantras as we go into some of the practices that are in the text. So let's just say our dedication prayers. And we'll do Jangchub. We'll do the one for bodhicitta, the one for emptiness, and then in all my lives. So it's Jangchub, Semchok, Tong, yeah, and then Kienwa. Okay. Chub sem chog ring poche ma ke pana ke gyu chi ke panam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pe war shuok tong ye ta Rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyu chi ke panyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pe war shio Kie wa kun tu yang dang la ma dang Dre me chin. Sadang lang ki on ten rap sogne. Dorje changi go pang yor to shu. Okay, thank you, everybody. Sorry we went over a little bit. But I think we got the mantras covered.